So this government shutdown is the third longest in history. And if we make it to November 5th and we're still shut down, it will be the longest shutdown. A lot of people think we're going to get there. Speaker of the House thinks we're going to get there. Your friends and family, they all probably think we're going to get there. And that's going to be the ultimate symbol of failure, the inability to compromise. What happened on Thursday? Thursday, we had another vote. You know how that went. Failure. Democrats rejected a continuing resolution for the 10th time. And this is about the healthcare subsidies. It's about that again. And in March, it was the same situation. The Democrats could have taken a stand in March. They could have said, hey, we're going to fight now, but they didn't, largely because of Chuck Schumer. So they choose this moment in time to fight the administration, to fight the Republicans. That's what's happening right now. The House should be in recess all this week. So it's gonna rest on the Senate to get a CR passed. Is it gonna happen? Most people think absolutely not. But look at the last vote, because there was something really interesting that happened during the last vote. You had a Democrat, another senator, break away from Chuck Schumer. So we had a senator in Pennsylvania and Nevada. They're voting with the Republicans. So for the first time ever, we had a senator from New Hampshire come over, and they also voted with the Republicans. The vote was 51-45, which is nowhere close. You need 60 votes. So why are there 4 senators not voting? They need a vote. You need a vote. If you're a senator, why wouldn't you be voting? Vote on this. Anyway, we're seeing more and more consequences when it comes to this shutdown. For one, there's projects, billion-dollar projects. Look at the Army Corps of Engineers. There was an $11 billion project that's paused now. You know what that does? That costs jobs, mainly contracting jobs. A lot of them, thousands of jobs. Maybe it's just temporary, but what we're seeing is 2 things. So you have paused hiring when it comes to these contracts. A lot of them are construction projects. So you're pausing hiring, and then also potential furloughs, potentially laying off people because the money isn't moving. So that's an issue. We also could see additional federal layoffs this week, to include the Department of Interior, the Department of Energy, maybe some other agencies too are going to spring up. Now, we know that there was a federal judge that placed a restraining order towards a lot of these agencies, saying that you cannot continue with any RIF operations. That's where it stands right now, but once the appeal goes through, once the Supreme Court weighs in, we could be seeing something completely different. This RIF restraining order, this doesn't apply just to union members. You could potentially have leadership and management that were getting cut, because management gets cut too. I know a lot of GS-14s and GS-15s that were caught up in some RIFs. So leadership is typically not affiliated, or they're not considered, a union member, but they could still be protected by the way that this is written. And there's also this unfortunate situation where people, they applied for a VERA, early retirement. They wanted to get their early retirement. They're doing the deferred resignation program. That still exists. DRP is still happening. Some agencies they're doing DRP all the way out until the end of December, so December 31st. You have your DRP locked in, you have your early retirement locked in, and then out of nowhere, you get a RIF notice saying that you need to leave by December 15th. What is that all about? A lot of people are in that situation. I think that's a clerical error. I think it's an administration error. But you need to check with HR. You need to check with your first line supervisor and figure it out, because that doesn't sound right at all. If you agreed to, certain stipulations when it comes to the deferred resignation program, a lot of people are saying, well, that program wasn't on the up and up. That's not exactly legal. But it is what it is. It's written there. You signed an agreement. And if they're going counter to that, you need to reach out and talk to somebody. Also, this past weekend, we saw the No Kings protest taking place in a lot of cities across the country. This allegedly had millions of people out there. This is the second major protest under the name No Kings. It is a protest against President Trump. Now, obviously, he's not a king. Why are people upset? Well, the ignoring of court rulings is one of them. Another one is centralized executive branch power, making the executive branch more powerful than it was intended, potentially. And then also the federal purge, right? The way that he's cutting the federal workforce. a lot of things that he's doing is without the input of Congress. And a lot of people are afraid about, a lot of people are worried about that. They're concerned about that, or they're disgusted by it. So that's why they took to the streets. Now, we are also seeing some signs that the average American is realizing the impact of a government shutdown. There was a poll that came out, over 1,000 Americans. This is not federal workers. It's just your everyday American. It's not a federal employee type poll. It's an everybody type poll. The poll, over 1,000 people, they asked, is the government shutdown, are you worried about the government shutdown impacting your local community? And over half the people said yes. And it's because these people understand that although they might not be federal workers or contractors or local government employees that get federal funding or university, research assistants, people like that, even though they don't fall into one of those categories, the end result is you have millions and millions of people in the economy that do not have discretionary income, that do not feel secure with their ability to get a paycheck even after working. So they're not going to be spending on goods and services, and that impacts a local economy. That impacts people's communities. And it's not just DC, it's a lot of locations all across the country, even Oklahoma. You ever think about Oklahoma? Man, when I think about, I don't think about Oklahoma, but I know we have a lot of contractors over there. We have federal workers over there, and their economies, they're really delicate. Like if the federal employees stop spending, it really hurts small business. So they're worried about that. Now, during a government shutdown, typically the attrition rate, it goes higher. That makes sense, right? Because you realize, hey, I don't have stability here. I got to go find it. This is not just for federal workers, but also contractors. So public service takes a hit because it takes a while to rehire those positions. There was one contract that made the news, like right when the shutdown happened, like the first few days. It was a company that laid off like 200-300 janitors, custodian workers, laid them off. Now they said it wasn't directly connected to the shutdown, just real peculiar timing, I suppose. But you have jobs like that, you have functions like that really impact public service, right? You expect that when you go into the hospital, the floors are clean, they're mopped, everything, looks decent. You expect that. Same thing in the airport. You don't expect to be slipping and falling because somebody spilled their soda and nobody's mopping it up. You don't expect that. But these are some of the impacts that people slowly start to observe and realize during a shutdown. We have also heard that there are some people getting paid. In fact, thousands of people are going to get paid when we're talking about federal workers, but not all of them. Only the ones that the administration really likes, really wants to take care of. They're worried about morale. They want to hook them up, make sure they're well taken care of and everything's, going fine. And as you can imagine, this includes immigration enforcement. Maybe the people that are cracking down on Antifa, maybe they should be able to enjoy their paycheck. Other people, not so much. So if you want to know the difference on who's getting paid, who's not getting paid, if that interests you, I want you to check this video out next. Stay updated by signing up to the free newsletter down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.